So if you are struggling to recomposition or to, build tissue or to lose fat, or if you want to do them both, all you have to do is kind of implement all of these factors within all of these three variables and optimize them. In today's episode, we're going to be answering an age-long question, and that is a body recomposition possible? So body recomposition is the simultaneous acquisition of lean tissue while also losing body fat. And the main counter argument as to why they can't exist is because, well, to create or promote anabolism or the creation of tissue, you need a surplus. That means more energy coming into the system than energy leaving. But to promote fat loss, you need a deficit. So the opposite, more energy leaving the system than energy entering the system. So how can you have both at the same time? And I think that explanation is a gross oversimplification of how complex the body is. And not only is a recomposition possible, a recomposition is almost certain for those individuals that have not yet optimized the variables around fitness. And I'm not revolutionary in saying this. This is what a lot of coaches and what a lot of athletes have seen for themselves. And in this episode, I'm just going to talk about how each of the components of variables within fitness contributes to a body recomposition being possible. And let's just start off with nutrition. And no one said it better than John Meadows when he said, "It's not what you eat, it's what you eat that digests and processes." And when he was referring to this, he was referring to a multitude of factors, but most notably insulin sensitivity. Insulin sensitivity is how responsive our cells are to the insulin hormone, given that this hormone is what shuttles and what knocks on the cell membrane so that the cell can open and uptake these nutrients into the cell for oxidation. So a cell that is insulin resistant or insulin insensitive, it doesn't hear the knock. So when these nutrients come, they bounce off the cell membrane, they go into the bloodstream, and then they have a higher propensity for ending up at adipose fat cells. And adipose fat cells turn them into triglycerides. But the problem is that fat directly correlates to insulin resistance or insensitivity. So more body fat means more resistance and sensitivity, which is the very thing that caused more body fat to accrue. So you can see how this is a cycle that we don't want to find ourselves in. Now, as far as strategies for how to improve insulin sensitivity, I have an episode on that. It's titled Insulin Sensitivity. It's a podcast. I don't have a YouTube on it yet, but you can definitely check that out, and there's strategies there. And I explain a little bit more in depth as to how this mechanism works. But basically, how does insulin sensitivity promote muscle gain? Okay, and let's just kind of put this into context. So you have a male 20% body fat that consumes 2,500 calories, and that is their baseline. So from this, we know that 20% body fat, according to the P ratio, is a little bit towards the insensitive side. So if we were to just put a number, this is extremely relative, but let's just say this person is 60% insulin sensitive, 40% insulin resistant. That means that out of those 2,500 calories, only 60% are going to be uptaken into the cells or into lean tissue to, be oxidized or used to repair, used to adapt, used to restore energy stores, glycogen, intramuscular lipids, whatever it is. So only 60%. The other 40% get sent to storage. So technically, the person only has 60% of 2,500 available. But as you begin improving insulin sensitivity, this number goes up. Out of those 2,500 calories, even if he doesn't eat more, the muscle gains a surplus because the muscle has now become 70% insulin sensitive. So it's 70% out of 2,500 rather than 60. That is more calories. That is a surplus from where it was previously. And so you can see how if you continue this trend, you have a body or muscle that it has inherently a surplus created within a program that is baseline and in some cases even a deficit. Second, we have training, and we have two parts because with training, we have the resistance training component or the working out, and we also have the cardio, which I like to include within this one. And the main purpose of the resistance training is to upregulate metabolism. We do not use resistance training for calorie expenditure. It is minimally differential in terms of calorie expenditure. That is what cardio is there for. So that I just want to get you guys to know that like that's not its purpose. Furthermore, like the more energy we have available to us, energy because of improved insulin sensitivity, that means that we can train harder, and kind of finding these new levels to train at and training with more intent, better effort, that's going to promote even more metabolic flexibility. So that means that the muscles are going to be like, hey, we need energy here. Fuck that. Don't take it over there. We need it. So that is going to improve our efficiency out of utilizing the nutrients that we do consume. And also within the cardio component, I'm not saying that because cardio is going to be the main contributor to calorie deficit. I'm not saying, hop on the Stairmaster an hour per day every day or do crazy hit intervals. I'm talking about just NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And this is what contributes to 20% of our total calorie expenditure throughout the day. And this is just the walking around, the going shopping, the doing things around your home. The more active you are, the more up and about. So rather than, sitting on the couch and watching a movie at the end of the evening, go on a walk. Do something out in nature. Go hiking. Do little things. It doesn't have to be exercise. It doesn't have to be cardio. It just has to be active. And doing that and incorporating more low impact steady state has a higher propensity of kind of using fats as fuel. So that in of itself, I don't want to kind of mislead you guys in saying that, but basically you can either utilize fats or carbohydrates as energy. And so if we have a graph here and we have the intensity of the exercise and we have the proportion of what metabolite is used as energy. So this is less of the metabolite, more of the metabolite. This is less intensity. This is greater intensity. So for fats, it is descending. So that means that when we're low intensity, we use more fats as energy. But for carbohydrates, as we are low intensity, we use less carbohydrates, but greater intensity as we use more. So training falls within this area. So resistance training falls within this. So we use predominantly carbohydrates. It is anaerobic. But for walking, low impact steady state, we're over here. We're using more fats. Total calorie wise, this is, calorie wise, doing high intensity like a hit session time-wise is going to be burn more calories than doing that same time interval, low impact steady state. That yes, more calories, but most of those calories would have come from carbohydrates anyways, not from fat itself. So I just kind of wanted to explain that to kind of illustrate that or kind of like address a misconception that can be built around that graph. And I tried to draw it. Hopefully it kind of shows on the video, but you could imagine it otherwise. But that's basically the contribution to cardio. And that has the lipolytic effect where it kind of breaks down the fats. So yes, you can inherently have a surplus while also creating the necessary environment to create a deficit to promote fat loss. And we haven't even talked about the third variable, which is recovery. And within recovery, we have the stress mitigation and we also have the sleep. And in the last episode I have, the one that I just dropped today on YouTube, I talk about how we can improve stress and how we can implement stress mitigation strategies in order to bring down systemic inflammation, because systemic inflammation is also what contributes to insulin resistance. So bringing that down can improve that. Also, I just learned from Will Sage that inflammation within the gut biome, but just general inflammation, we'll just call it general inflammation, converts more T3 into RT3, so reverse T3. T3 is basically thyroid hormone, and it kind of notes to cells how fast they should function. So higher T3 means a higher, faster metabolism, and less T3 and our T3 is the opposite of T3. It's like the reverse. So it creates a slower metabolism or promotes a slower metabolism. It doesn't really promote it. It just means that less T3 is available because it converts it. So less T3 just has inherently a slower metabolism. It's not the RT3 that's actually promoting it. It's just kind of taking away from what could potentially be more fast functioning metabolism. Kind of just wanted to explain that and correct myself within that. But basically, reduce inflammation, and that's through stress management. And when we talk about sleep, the importance of cannot be underestimated. I always say it this way. The modern brain has been around for over 500,000 years, and if in those 500,000 years it hasn't found a way to adapt so that it doesn't need sleep, like sleep is this period of being, susceptible to danger. If it hasn't found a way to get rid of it, even when there is a need to get rid of it, then that means it's very important for us. And it is. Sleep decreases inflammation, improves insulin sensitivity, improves performance, improves mental cognition. Sleep is inherently lipolytic. It is a fasted state. During the period of sleep, your insulin levels are low because you don't have any, you're not ingesting any food during this time. So it's a fasting period that promotes lipolysis. So the burning of fat. You also have growth hormone release, which activates IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor, that promotes repair. So you have all this energy kind of being required into the system during sleep. And here we are trying to limit or thinking that, sleep is not necessary for fat loss. Sleep is absolutely essential for fat loss. So if you are struggling to recomposition or to build tissue or to lose fat, or if you want to do them both, all you have to do is kind of implement all of these factors within all of these three variables and optimize them. And I've talked about them each of them individually. So I have a podcast episode on insulin sensitivity. That's about the majority of what you need to know in that respect. Then I have a couple episodes on training, just how to create a good training program. That's all you need to know there. I have to do one on cardio still. I'll make sure to do it though. And then I have the last one on recovery. The last YouTube I did was on stress. So stress mitigation, use that. And then get your 7 hours of sleep. I'm pretty sure I talk about sleep in that one too. But that's basically it, guys. That answers the question is a body recomposition possible? And yes, a body recomposition is possible. And if you want to see a body recomposition for yourself, all you have to do is implement these things. Peace out. If you love bodybuilding and this episode provided you with some value, then I encourage you to share with your friends, and together we'll all move forward in this bodybuilding journey.